everyone. Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Owen McKendry. This is a final thoughts, final prediction video ahead of the big fight tonight between former world champion Deontay Wilder, former world champion Joseph Parker in the co-main event, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, live on DAZN pay-per-view. Owen, good to speak to you. Always enjoy doing these sort of videos with you. Never quite know what you're going to say, but that makes it all the more fun. Had the weigh-in yesterday between Parker and Wilder. Wilder came in at 213 pounds, very similar weight for his last fight against Robert Helenius. Joseph Parker, 245 pounds, looks in fantastic shape. Bit lighter than his last fight against Simon Keane, but yeah, look, just maybe looked bigger than in his previous career, but still in fantastic shape. Want to ask you a few questions as always. What were your thoughts on this fight when it got announced? What did you think that this guy's going to win, that guy's going to win? What sprung to mind when you saw this fight get announced a couple of months ago?
Do you know what? When it first got announced, I had the tunnel vision of Joseph Parker getting walked down by Joe Joyce and take a beating, and completely sort of forgot that Deontay Wilder's barely boxed in the last couple of years, sort of thing. Initial thoughts were Parker, good boxer, very good boxer, doesn't carry the most amount of power. Wilder's going to land the right hand at some point because Parker does get caught. And as soon as he got announced, I just thought Wilder's going to knock him out. Be easy, not necessarily an easy night's work, but a standard Wilder of Parker's probably going to be 5 or 6 or maybe even 7-1 up on the cards, getting told by the corner, just do what you're doing, don't get stupid, and then get out of jail, bang, good night sort of shot. And then the more I think about it, there's been so many questions that I've been asking myself, and so many factors that are playing into it. But yeah, initially it was just Wilder, good night, mid to late sort of stoppage.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would share your view there. Wilder, as we know, there's only one man who's beaten him in, I think it's 45, 46 fights. That man being Tyson Fury. He's also got that draw against Tyson Fury. Joseph Parker, to be fair to him, the only loss on his record. Anthony Joshua, who was world champion at the time. Dillian White, who was seen as a top 10, possibly even top 5 heavyweight at the time in a very close fight. And Joe Joyce, who at the time again was seen as top 10, maybe even top 5 heavyweight. And the thing was an 11th round stoppage in that fight. What are the factors here, Owen? Is Wilder past his best now, and we don't know because we've not seen much of him the last couple of years? Is it a case of can Parker stand up to Wilder's punches? Is Parker at his? I don't want to say at his peak now, but maybe there are some people saying maybe he is. He's been with Andy Lee as his trainer for a little while now. Looked good in his last fight out against Simon Keane. What are the key factors for you here when deciding what your final prediction is?
I think the main key factor was who's had the more taxing loss, because I think you see it in boxing now, especially at the heavier weights. Although you get a lot of these fighters are warriors, like Parker, he's got a great chin, he can take a punch, but how much did that Joe Joyce loss take out of him? Because although he did look good against obviously Simon Keane, he fought Jack Massey, which realistically was a stupid fight. It was all wild. Parker, sorry, was always going to beat him on points that night. And then it's the same with Wilder. All we've seen him was against Helenius, where obviously he sent him to sleep. Didn't get that long to actually show sort of if Helenius leans on him, pushes the pace, sort of thing, what happens in the later rounds. And obviously those 3 fights against Fury, obviously he was lucky to get the draw in the first fight, and then the next two he just got smashed to bits really. Um, and then taking that into account, you look at when he was getting beat up by Fury, he still knocked him down, he still clipped him. There's all these sort of factors that play into each other of okay, even if while Parker's outboxing him, Wilder's unfit, or sorry, not necessarily unfit, but he's getting to the stage of his career where cardio is going. He's not as fit as he used to be. his punch resistance has gone, or is at a much lower stage, but he's always going to land at least one punch. Is Parker going to take it? Has Joe Joyce taken Parker's iron chin away? Because although I actually thought Joseph Parker edged that fight against Dylan White, it was a fairly controversial card. It was a close fight. You know, he took some massive punches at points. Both fighters' legs were gone during it. So I think there's both fighters in Wilder and Parker have both had big nights where they've taken lots of damage. Um, so it's a case of who, if either of them decide to let their hands go, is the other one going to have the punch resistance to take it? So I genuinely think it could come down to punch resistance at the end of it. If it comes down to cardio, I think Parker takes it by a landslide. But yeah, I think how big was that? How taxing was that? Joe Joyce fight and how taxing were the Fury fights? And the only way we're going to find out is once that first bell goes.
Yeah, for sure. I think like one factor about this fight is both men have had a lot of fights between them.
Hmm.
Deontay Wilder, I think it's 45, 46 fights. Joseph Parker, 35, 36 fights. They've not been in, maybe not been in like a ton of wars together, but you could have two men here who, one way or another, are both in the grander stages of their careers, and it could be a case possibly of who's got what left, quite possibly. Um,
Hmm.
in the past 24 hours or so, we've seen more people, a lot of people maybe switch their prediction. You've seen more people believe that Joseph Parker's going to do this. Joseph Parker's going to beat Deontay Wilder, whether it be on points or by stoppage even. Just before I do ask you for your final prediction, Owen, just going to go through the latest betting odds. Deontay Wilder is still 1-6 to win, 1-4 by KO, and 13-2 by decision. Parker 4-1 to win the fight, 9-1 to win by KO, and 8-1 to win by decision. Um, with that, we're going to give our final predictions. Owen, give us, yeah, I'll let you go first. What's yours?
I think just quickly before I do my prediction, one thing I did the betting show with our colleague Niall for this, and I think I find the odds crazy that Wilder is such heavy favourite. When you factor in all those factors we've been through for value betting, even if you don't believe he's going to win, Joseph Parker's odds are unbelievable. I genuinely think it could potentially be like the best value I've ever seen. Obviously, Wilder could knock him out in 2 rounds, but I just think for so many where there's so many questions, for there to be that big a gap is mental. But yeah, I've toyed myself with. I looked at either I said Wilder knockout or Parker points. I've toyed with myself between both men getting the stoppage, because I think if Parker can take the first big right hand, Wilder's almost sort of going to be he's going to be thinking shit, almost like what's left, what's now sort of thing. I'm still going to back the Deontay Wilder stoppage in the mid to late rounds, but the more I think about the fight, the less surprised I'd be to see Parker get a very late TKO. But my prediction would be sort of round 7, round 8, Deontay Wilder by stoppage after being down heavily on the cards.
Interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to what does Wilder have left? 38 years old now. We really don't know. No, and I think not many people do. One thing I would say is it feels like in Parker's career, he has fallen short at a
Mhm.
certain level each time, and I expect that to happen again. So I'm going with you. I'm going for a Wilder stoppage mid rounds. And look, there is that question over what happens if Parker connects with Wilder. While Parker can punch, as we saw in his last fight. But I'll go with you. I'll go with you as well. I do think round 6 or 7 is what I'm going to go for. Apologies for going pretty much exactly to what you're doing, Owen, but that is my gut feeling. But it's intriguing. It's really interesting to see the difference in opinion the last 24 hours. Um, from a betting perspective, you've got to be tempted to put something on Parker. I personally, Parker KO, it really interests me. I think it was eight. Yeah, I think it was 8-1, 9-1. Sorry, for Park to win by stoppage. That's really tempting. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Owen, thank you for your time. Deontay Wilder, Joseph Parker tomorrow night or tonight in Saudi Arabia as the co-main event to the Day of Reckoning event. Owen, thank you very much for your time. I will speak to you again soon.
Pleasure as always, mate.